Welcome to the podcast today, everybody. I'm here with Terry James. Terry James and Pete Garcia wrote a new book called The New World Order, Worlds in Collision and the Rebirth of Liberty. And this is a great book that we're going to discuss some of the topics in it. Terry, welcome.
Thank you very much, Armando. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, it's good. And Pete is off working, actually, and so he's not able to be here, which is kind of a bummer.
It is, and I like to say that Pete wrote a great deal of this book, most of it, and a lot of it was his idea, and I thank him so much. He did a tremendous job, as did you with the foreword.
Yeah, you know what? I really appreciate you asking me to do the foreword on this because as I looked at some of the initial thoughts and the manuscript, I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely participating in what you're doing because we're kind of living, Terry, in the New World implementation stage, which I definitely want to talk about. But before we do, let's kind of set the stage from a foundational level, which is kind of what I did in the foreword, that the first thing I say in the book, or at least in my foreword, is, quote, "You're a conspiracy theorist." And we know that that's kind of been a pejorative term over the past. But let's talk about that. As a biblical Christian, is it right? And should we embrace the phrase being a conspiracy person or a conspiracy theorist?
Well, in myself, I would argue that what I believe and what I think is based on the Bible, God cannot lie. It's His Word, and therefore it's not a conspiracy. But I realize that the world's going to call a lot of it a conspiracy because they're the antithesis of everything God recommends, and so I can't help what they call me, a conspiracy theorist, and if they want to call me that, that's what I am. Then I'm still going to put forth what I believe God's Word says, particularly in Bible prophecy, and if they want to deny that, well, there again, anyway, that's the way I deal with conspiracy.
Yeah, it's interesting because to me it's like, well, of course I'm a conspiracy guy, aren't you? I mean, if we look at the definition of conspiracy, it's two or more people plotting together for some sort of mostly nefarious idea. And so when we look at Satan as the master conspirator, that's kind of the way I start, at least the forward, is, hey guys, of course we believe in conspiracy because we believe in Satan. If you deny Satan, what's Satan's goal? Well, from the beginning, we're introduced to him in Genesis 3. We show up on the scene, and there he is, and he's conspiring, and he against God for sure, nefariously, but also he looks to recruit humanity, and so he shows up in the garden, seeking to cause trouble.
Yeah, and is antagonistic to his desires. You and I are conspiracists, Mondo, because we both are conspiring together to adhere to what God's Word says to bring people to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, which is the answer to sin. So in that sense, yeah, we're conspiring together. We're conspiracists in the good way.
In a good way, yeah. Yeah, and so let's go back and kind of revisit. I just like to encourage people, hey guys, oftentimes when labels are thrown out, you're a conservative, you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're a liberal, whatever those labels are, oftentimes they're meant to neutralize people. And so if people want to throw that at us, I'm like, absolutely, I embrace it. Now, let's talk about it. We believe in a conspiracy that originated with Satan, who's working behind the scenes against God, and he's seeking to establish his own, which we'll get to, his own order of things. But when we think about what he's doing, let's talk about who else is involved spiritually and even from a human level in his kingdom.
In God's kingdom?
No, in Satan's kingdom.
Oh.
I mean, he's not doing this alone, right? He's got other helpers.
Like we've talked about before, I think that, Ephesians 6:12 pretty much has it down. We struggle not against flesh and blood, against principalities and powers, against, evil in high places, wickedness in high places, and so forth. And yeah, I again believe that Satan has both his demonic and supernatural minions at work, as they have been since the fall and since being kicked out of heaven. And then he has the human minions working under them, in which they're tempted and even indwelt, I think, in some cases. And the world is full of Satan's minions, both human and demonic.
Yeah. I think there's no doubt as we look at history, there are those that hate God and who are willing participants in Satan's agenda to establish his kingdom apart from God. But there's also, let's talk about the other angle too. There's those that surprisingly would be willing to join Satan and sell their soul for riches or for wealth or sensual pleasures, whatever the fame, whatever those temptations that Satan offers. But we also have those that are deceived. I mean, we know from 1 Timothy chapter 2 that Eve was deceived into taking the fruit, right? Because she looked at it and she's like, oh, wow, it looks pleasing. And I could be like one of the gods if I do this. Oh, this is awesome. And so he deceives her with the temptation that she accepts. Adam did it willingly. But let's talk about the others that maybe they mean well in trying to establish a global order. Maybe. But they've been deceived into his methods and to his philosophy.
Well, I think they all, most of them may begin by thinking they're doing God's service, God's work by doing this. But what the human mind does, because it's fallen and it's getting farther away from God, as we see through the issues and events of the day, just amazing the things we see, the direction we see things going away from God. And I think even within our government, we see that it's that we have reprobate minds running things right now in this government, in this world, and not only in this United States but in other places too. And so that's the way it's headed.
Yeah, when we look at the and this is what you guys do in the book, which is so good. You establish the theological foundation of if we want to understand the future, then we look at the past, right? And we see that philosophy, which is good. Those that don't understand history are doomed to repeat it and all the other things. But when we look at Satan's MO in the Bible, he's recruiting not only the spiritual hosts, leading a rebellion there, he's recruiting humans to participate in it. And we see historically, whether it's the garden, whether it is Cain and Abel, maybe the Tower of Babel for sure, and then we come into the nation of Israel and how he's recruiting the kings that to worship other gods, always in opposition to worshiping and being loyal to the true God.
That's because of the fallen nature of mankind. The tendency is to pull away from God. That's where the break, and that's why man has to be reconciled, and only Jesus Christ can do that, and only God's way can do that. And until that happens, it's going to continue going the opposite direction, at which time ultimately God's wrath and judgment are going to fall on mankind. And I believe we see some, maybe not the full wrath or full judgment, but we certainly have seen numerous warnings, I believe, from God just in our era, in what we call the modernistic era, maybe.
Yeah.